I want you to picture something for a second. Just, imagine a pop music icon. He's the son of a handyman from suburban Virginia, and right now he's probably cruising around Miami in a completely custom Enzo Ferrari.
Okay, yeah. I've got that image.
Right. Now, I want you to take him and pair him with a world-renowned, Cambridge-educated neuroscientist who was born in India, a man who literally spends his days mapping the deepest, most complex pathways of the human brain to understand the origins of consciousness.
Wow. I mean, on the surface, you are looking at two completely different universes of human experience.
Completely different.
Yeah, one is built entirely on, like, intuition and mass culture, and the other is just built on rigorous clinical observation. What could they possibly have in common?
Well, today we are taking a deep dive into an absolutely fascinating conversation from Interview Magazine that proves these two universes actually do collide, and in a really profound way.
Oh, absolutely.
We're looking at a sit-down between the musician and producer Pharrell Williams and Dr. V.S. Ramachandran. He's the director of the Center of Brain and Cognition at UC San Diego. Newsweek actually named him one of the top 100 people to watch in the 21st century.
Which is a massive deal.
Huge deal. So our mission today is to explore this unexpected, deeply scientific intersection of pop music, neuroscience, and human creativity. We're going to show you how tapping into your own inner nerd might just be like the ultimate evolutionary advantage.
You know, to really appreciate how strange this pairing is, you kind of have to look at Pharrell's creative footprint at the time of this interview.
Right. It was everywhere.
Exactly. He's not just making catchy beats in a studio. He's fronting the alt-rock band N.E.R.D. He's running his clothing line, Billionaire Boys Club. And he had just co-wrote the score for the animated movie Despicable Me.
Which is wild on its own. But he's also deeply involved in these avant-garde art collaborations. Like, he partnered with Takashi Murakami and a luxury jewelry house to create this piece. It featured a bottle of Johnson's baby lotion encrusted with 26,000 rubies, sapphires, and diamonds.
Wait, baby lotion?
Yeah. Sitting inside a massive sculpture. I mean, it is the definition of eclectic, boundary-pushing pop art. And then, you have Dr. Ramachandran, entrenched in heavy, rigorous academia. His job is discovering objective, measurable truths about psychology.
Yeah, a jewel-encrusted bottle of baby lotion is light years away from an MRI machine.
Well, light years. But the way they found each other is actually so telling about modern society. It was through YouTube.
Right, the great equalizer.
Exactly. Dr. Ramachandran's son showed him some of Pharrell's music videos. And around the same time, Pharrell had seen the doctor on the Discovery Channel and, fell down a whole rabbit hole watching his university lectures online.
Which is fascinating, because decades ago, a pop star and an academic neuroscientist would never have just casually stumbled into each other's distinct worlds.
Never. And Pharrell was drawn in specifically by the way Dr. Ramachandran communicates. In the conversation, he compares him to astrophysicists like Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, the heavy hitters.
Yeah, he calls them rock stars because they possess this really rare ability to translate genius to the masses. They somehow bypass all that dense, alienating jargon that usually keeps regular people locked out of the science world.
And that's something the academic world really struggles with, honestly. They develop these specialized lexicons that, work perfectly for peer review, but they act as a total brick wall to anyone outside the lab. Breaking that down requires a very specific type of cognitive flexibility.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I'm wondering, is translating complex neuroscience for the general public exactly the same fundamental skill as writing a massive pop hook?
That's a great question.
Are both of these guys essentially taking complex, chaotic inputs, whether that's raw emotion or raw scientific data, and distilling them into a rhythm that everyone else can intuitively feel?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture Ramachandran lays out in the source, the answer is a resounding yes.
Really?
Yeah. He talks about this false dichotomy society sets up between the disciplines. We're taught to view art as this subjective celebration of the individual, right? And science is just the sterile discovery of cold general principles.
Right. Left brain versus right brain stuff.
Exactly. But Ramachandran argues they are driven by the exact same cognitive engine. It's all about the ability to find hidden links.
Hidden links. I like that.
Yeah. A great scientist looks at a massive, chaotic spreadsheet of data and spots a pattern that no one else noticed. And a great artist looks at the chaos of human culture or grief or joy and finds a melody that connects it all. The underlying creative impulse is actually identical.
And what's crazy is that concept of finding hidden links actually manifests as a literal physical trait in the brain.
Yes, the synesthesia discussion.
Exactly. They start talking about Pharrell's album, Seeing Sounds. And Pharrell just casually mentions that when he was a kid, he assumed everyone saw colors when they heard music.
Which is so funny. He just thought it was normal.
Totally normal. He describes hearing a specific chord and thinking, oh, that's kind of burgundy, or, this progression is baby blue. He was genuinely shocked to learn his friends weren't generating these colored landscapes in their heads.
So what he was experiencing there is called grapheme color synesthesia. It's this neurological phenomenon where stimulating one sensory pathway just automatically, involuntarily triggers an experience in a second pathway.
So the wires are crossed.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
Every time a synesthete hears a note or sees a number, they perceive a specific, consistent color. And Ramachandran's lab used brain imaging to prove this isn't just people being eccentric or making things up for attention.
It's a real biological reality.
A verifiable reality. And statistically, synesthesia is 8 to 9 times more common among artists, poets, and novelists than it is in the general public.
Wait, I'm confused though. If the brain is bleeding audio signals into the visual department, isn't that basically a developmental defect?
Yeah.
How does a biological error translate into a high-functioning genius writing pop hits instead of just causing severe cognitive overload?
It comes down to the mechanics of how the human brain develops. So in a fetus or an infant, the brain is like this wildly overgrown garden. Billions of neurons are connected diffusely. Everything is cross-wired.
Okay.
But as we grow, the brain undergoes this critical process called synaptic pruning. It actively severs those excess connections to create highly specialized, distinct functional areas.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so the audio processing center gets walled off from the visual processing center so we can process the world efficiently without all that sensory static.
So it's kind of like a city grid. Most brains tear up the chaotic, winding back alleys to build efficient, specialized superhighways.
Yes.
But a creative brain keeps those weird back alleys open, allowing them to take a shortcut from music directly over into color.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. In creative people, and especially synesthetes, that pruning process just doesn't fully take place. Those structural back alleys remain intact.
Wow.
And because of those excess physical links, their brains quite literally see connections between concepts that seem totally unrelated to the rest of us. Ramachandran uses this brilliant metaphor in the text.
Oh, the Shakespeare one.
Right. He brings up Shakespeare's famous line, "Juliet is the sun." Now, if you show that phrase to a pig, the pig just sees meaningless visual splotches on a page.
Obviously.
And if you show it to an average human, they read the literal words and understand the basic comparative meaning.
But someone highly creative uses those unpruned crosswires to get a multidimensional punch. They don't just read the word sun. Their brain physically triggers the neural networks for warmth, for radiance, for life-giving nurturing.
Exactly. They experience the full emotional and physical weight of the metaphor instantaneously.
But, okay, if the brain is physically rewiring to let someone literally see sound, what is music actually doing to us on a physical level? Because we all know music isn't just an intellectual math equation, right? It alters our reality.
He does. And Ramachandran cautions against the pop psychology explanations we usually hear. The idea that music is basically just a drug triggering dopamine.
Right, the whole music is a high thing.
Yeah. While brain regions like the septum and the nucleus accumbens do generate pleasure, they do that for anything. Eating a great meal, surviving a dangerous situation, music provides a vastly different multidimensional pleasure.
How so?
Well, Ramachandran suggests the right hemisphere of the brain acts almost like an antenna to another realm. He uses the example of Indian raga scales. A musician might say they're playing in the Hindal mood.
Okay.
Anyone familiar with that scale instantly understands a very complex nuance. It's this blend of ecstatic divine emotions.
Emotions that completely bypass language. You can't write a paragraph to explain the Hindal mood, but the structure of the chords communicates it instantly to your brain.
Exactly. Language is too limited, but the auditory frequencies tune the brain's antenna to experience something totally transcendent.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Pharrell brings up his own theory about reaching beyond our basic senses. He calls it the seventh sense.
Oh, this part was fascinating.
Yeah. He argues that literally everything man-made around us, the phone in your pocket, the fork on your table, all of it started as an invisible thought. A fork is a physical object now, but initially it was just an idea.
Right.
Pharrell says we use our 5 physical senses, and we combine them with our mind, which he views as the sixth sense, to blueprint these ideas.
Right, so the mind acts as the central processing unit for sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing.
But then he introduces this super consciousness. He describes it as instinct, intuition, or, those gut feelings you just can't logically explain. He believes the seventh sense is the ether where hunches originate, and it's what truly separates humans from other species. It's where the spark of invention lives.
What's fascinating here is that when an artist like Pharrell speaks metaphorically about a superconsciousness, you'd totally expect a strict academic to just dismiss it as spiritual fluff.
Oh, 100%. Like, okay, pop star, let's get back to reality.
Exactly. But Ramachandran doesn't. He actually validates Pharrell's instinct with hard neurological anatomy. He points to a very specific structure in the brain called the left inferior parietal lobule.
Okay, that sounds incredibly complex. How does a lobule validate a seventh sense?
Well, this specific brain region is highly pronounced in human beings, but it's virtually non-existent in lower animals, and it sits perfectly at the physical crossroads of the brain's lobes.
The cross.
Yeah, it is the literal anatomical location where touch, vision, and hearing all converge. And because those senses share a physical room in the lobule, the brain can map the physical sensation of sharpness, like a physical knife, onto an auditory sensation, like a high-pitched note.
Oh, wow.
Or even a conceptual idea, like having a sharp wit. It physically allows the brain to say, this thing is like that thing.
So if you're listening to this and wondering why you don't see colors when you hear music, it's not because you lack creativity. Your brain's superhighways might be highly specialized, but you still use that parietal lobule every single time you understand a joke, use slang, or comprehend a metaphor.
Exactly. It is the biological engine of human innovation. Ramachandran notes that when patients suffer damage to the left inferior parietal lobule, they lose the ability to engage in metaphorical thinking entirely.
No way.
Entirely. They lose the ability to find hidden links. They are completely cut off from Pharrell's seventh sense.
That is wild. The artist felt the existence of this blueprinting room intuitively, and the scientists mapped it biologically.
Beautifully said.
But if this biological superpower, this ability to find hidden links, is what elevates humanity, how do we actively cultivate it in culture? Because Pharrell doesn't just leave these deep bioneurological concepts in the recording studio.
No, he doesn't.
He has this active mission to elevate human consciousness by rebranding what it means to be smart. He calls it celebritizing the nerd.
Which is such a great phrase. He reflects on how, when he was in high school, being a nerd was considered a total social death sentence. It was literally the corniest thing you could be.
But he realized early on that the nerds are the ones who grow up and drive BMWs. They dictate the future. So he uses his massive cultural platform to punch away at that toxic notion that being intelligent isn't cool.
And he applies that scientific, analytical approach to highly tangible, real-world problems, too. The interview touches on his company, Bionic Yarn, which is honestly a masterclass in applied science.
Go tell me about it.
So, Bionic Yarn is an eco-friendly textile company, but they approach environmentalism as an engineering challenge. They replace traditional polyester with recycled plastics.
But they don't just melt the plastic down into weak fibers, right?
No, they construct the yarn by wrapping the recycled material around a core in a double helix structure.
Wait, like mimicking the structural integrity of human DNA to make clothes?
Exactly.
That is insane. And he notes that with this specific double helix method, 7 plastic bottles can make 1 pair of jeans.
It is a perfect fusion of biology, engineering, and fashion.
So what does this all mean? For Pharrell, it shapes his entire philosophy on how to change human behavior. He argues that people are overwhelmed and scared by the concept of going green, and preaching at them just doesn't work.
It really doesn't.
His strategy is to simply teach by example. You change the standard of living by making the smarter, scientific choice the most elegant, desirable choice available. You don't yell at someone to save the ocean. You just make the coolest pair of jeans in the store out of ocean plastic. Simplicity and elegance win.
And that pursuit of simplicity is a really profound connection between Pharrell and Ramachandran. During the interview, it's mentioned that the famous evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins actually dubbed Ramachandran the Marco Polo of neuroscience.
That's quite a title.
It is. It's because of his willingness to explore uncharted cognitive territory. But Ramachandran reveals that the scientific establishment constantly tried to hold him back. His peers literally told him that human nature, things like metaphor, falling in love, humor, creativity, They were simply too complicated to study scientifically.
It's like the establishment's reflex is to assume that complex phenomena require impenetrably complex study, which honestly is the exact same criticism the musical establishment leveled at hip-hop and punk rock when they first emerged.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, critics were like, it's just 3 chords, or it's just a drum loop and talking, it's too simple to be real music, it's not complex enough to convey deep emotion.
Yet the global culture adopted those genres precisely because of their direct emotional clarity. And Ramachandran draws the exact same conclusion for science. He argues that you don't need overwhelming complexity to arrive at a profound truth. In both a laboratory and a recording studio, simplicity and elegance are the ultimate signs of sophistication.
Okay, so if simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, what happens when we apply that simple lens to the biggest, most complex question of all? Human mortality.
Ah, yeah. We have to talk about N.E.R.D.
Right. Early on, we mentioned Pharrell's band, N.E.R.D. We know he wanted to celebritize the N.E.R.D, but the letters actually stand for a specific, really heavy phrase. No one ever really dies.
And this raises a huge question about how science and spirituality overlap. The interviewer actually brings up a fascinating parallel to the Buddha, playfully referring to him as an early neuroscientist.
I love that.
Yeah, the Buddha believed that matter can never come from non-matter, and consciousness can never come from non-consciousness. It's an ancient principle of rebirth and transformation. A tree dies, decays into soil, the soil nutrients wash into the sea, the water evaporates into clouds.
So the matter never actually disappears, it just changes form.
Exactly.
And Pharrell backs up this ancient spiritual philosophy with just fundamental, everyday biology. He points out that human beings are essentially walking conductors.
We really are.
Our physical bodies are roughly 75% water, which mimics the composition of the Earth itself, and we are quite literally filled with electricity. He gives the most universally understood example. You know, you're walking around your house in your socks, dragging your feet across the carpet, you reach out to touch a metal doorknob, and zap, you get a physical shock.
And that annoying little zap is profound, tangible proof of the electrical energy we harness inside our bodies. The
Yeah.
entire nervous system operates on electrical impulses.
And then they tie this directly to Albert Einstein's rule of the conservation of energy. Einstein proved mathematically that energy cannot be created or destroyed in an isolated system.
Right. It can only be transferred or transformed from one state to another.
So the logical progression of combining those two simple facts is staggering. We know as a scientific certainty that our physical bodies are animated by electrical energy. We know from physics that energy cannot be destroyed.
Therefore, when the physical flesh fails and dies, that animating electricity, the consciousness, the soul, whatever you want to call it, it has to go somewhere. It cannot just cease to exist.
And Farrell admits he doesn't have the definitive map of exactly where it goes, but based on the indisputable laws of thermodynamics, he is certain of the premise. No one ever really dies.
It is wild to think that a pop producer is using Einstein's equations and the conductive properties of water to explain the spiritual meaning behind a hip-hop group's name.
It's so wild, but it perfectly encapsulates what this entire deep dive has been about.
Right. Art and science are not opposing forces. They are just two different languages trying to describe the exact same reality.
They're both fueled by an intense, uniquely human curiosity to find the hidden connections in the world. Whether you're using an MRI scanner to map the cross-modal synthesis of the left inferior parietal lobule, or you're sitting at a piano letting your unpruned brain turn a baby blue chord progression into a platinum record, it's the exact same pursuit.
And as Farrell noted in the interview, curiosity is what illuminates the correct path.
Yeah.
The moment you stop asking questions, your brain literally begins to stagnate and die.
It is a biological imperative to keep searching for those hidden links.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought to consider. So I'll leave you with this to mull over today. If literally everything man-made around us, right from the fork on your dinner table to the jeans you're wearing right now, if all of that started as just an invisible idea that was brought into reality by human curiosity, then what realities are you currently failing to create simply because you've stopped looking for the hidden links in your own daily life?